very excited because I haven't seen what's about to happen. Every time we get together, we get distracted. Beers and stories, but I was mentioning how we met another gentleman who wants to do the same thing, and he happens to be from Oceanside. So we started meeting up, and they're both surfers, so they're talking about surfing most of the video. But this one is going to be mostly for us, or the riding community. One little fact that surprised me was when he said that he was the only guy he saw with a surfboard the whole time. So it's one thing to adventure tour, but it's another thing to surf along the whole way. And to do it for 2.5 years, it's pretty impressive. So, you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Put it closer? Yeah. So, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here, especially on a Saturday afternoon. There's a little skull on that table, and that's a little philosophy by Seneca. Seneca, the Roman senator. And he used to keep a skull on his work desk to remind him that the most precious thing in life is time, and time spent in health and in good company. So I appreciate you very much spending Saturday here with us to hear this amazing story. For me, every motorcycle that I've ever owned in my life, about 70, 80 right now, have been mostly a means to write a story, or to tell a story. I love riding alone. It has its positives and its negatives, but the YouTube channel allows me to share it. So I haven't met some of you. It's the first time you heard of through the channel, so I really appreciate it. We have some people live as well, all over the world. So I'll start this as I start every channel, every video. Zdravo y dobrodošli. Bom dia, bem-vindos. Servus, willkommen. Buenos dias, bienvenidos, and greetings. Thank you for being here. I say that because I think motorcycling is a universal language. Wherever you go, you and I know if we're on the side of the road, it'll be a biker that stops first. So I'm sure you have stories to share in that regard as well. So not to prolong, we have pizza, food, help yourself. Gene has decided to have questions fielded as they come. If you have a question, raise your hand. Very informal. I hadn't seen it, so I'm excited. This is Gene. We're here to celebrate his welcoming home. He's here in one piece with a lot of interesting stories, and it's a privilege to have been a small part of this. Gene, I met, this was actually my bike. And I invited the gentleman who sold me this bike when it didn't look like it came back from hell. 70, 80,000 miles later, we don't even know, the clock stopped working, but that gentleman sold me the motorcycle. I reviewed it with Gene. Gene bought it for me. We did a little bit of training, and that review video is what this other gentleman saw, and he called me. I was mentioning to them the story from a New Jersey number. He was saying, I want to do the same thing with the surfboard. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I can help you. We can maybe Zoom or something. He's like, no, I'm actually in San Diego. I live in the tiny town Oceanside. I know it. I live in Oceanside. So everybody I've met and everybody in this room has been because of the motorcycle. So pretty. I mean, I got stories with each and every one of you. One of the most memorable, of course, Sergey. Sergey, he wanted to buy my KTM, and I had a BMW that was a little tamer. And I said, why don't we try both? We'll take a day trip, and I think this BMW is more for you, and we can figure out whichever one you decide at the end of the day is yours. On Palomar, dangerous curve, it actually has a name, it's called Collarbone Corner. And I'm looking in my mirror and I see dangerous corner, and I distract it for a second, and I see Sergey going to the guardrail. So when you go to Palomar, you're climbing it, to the left is the most dangerous, it's undeniable, it's scary looking. And there are 3 pieces of guardrail missing, the support beams, and he took that out with his body. He was stuck, I don't know, 5-10 minutes we were trying to get him off there. And I just thought I witnessed the worst, but he not only got up, he finished the day, and then he went to play hockey after that. So, and that video's on the page. It was actually caught on camera, so if you're interested, you can take a look at that. But you have an experience like that with somebody, and it's a friendship for life. So, and I met a lot of friends through him, and everybody else either sold a motorcycle to me or bought one from me, or we went touring, etc. So, without further ado, thank you for being here. At the end, I'll tell you a little bit about the other stuff that we offer too. Pegasus Sidecar Tours in San Diego since 2018. 2-person sidecar and a third behind, the best way to see the place. And that's the sidecar outside. It's a little more aggressive. I don't know if I'm gonna have that go to work. And the newest product is the Pegasus Planner, which I'm working with a local leather maker to do something. I like to keep everything written. I think it's private, it's more real. So I created a plan and I just couldn't find anything on the market. So if you get a chance, take a look. The leather cover has a bunch of pieces that I use every day, especially us who have a helmet. And so there's a comb, cologne, that kind of thing. And I can't do without it. 2 little kids at home. It's the only way I can do life now. So take a look. If you're interested in any of gear, just let me know. By popular demand, I've been asked if there's a donation thing. I'm gonna turn a hat over. If you feel like it's for him, for making the trip from LA and taking it really seriously by dressing the suit. Yeah, he's from a wedding. He's from a wedding. So.
Yeah, actually, that wedding just it's a break right now in a perfect spot.
Yeah.
But
Great to have you guys.
I dressed up for you guys.
Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, really appreciate everyone's time here. So before the presentation, I would like to just reiterate that this is kind of the first time that I've really thought about this trip since I came back. I haven't really put any introspection into it. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys are just curious, comments, just spit it out. You know, let's kind of make this more of a conversation because I still don't quite know everything. You know, I haven't really developed all the thoughts yet. So if you guys have anything you want to ask, just let's make it a conversation. Yeah, that's how I can do my presentations. So to start off, name's Gene, to Ushuaia and back. My nickname on the road was the Korean Kowboy. So for this presentation, I'll go over a quick overview of the trip itself, the reality of kind of what moto traveling actually is like, in my experience, what I think the essential tips are, some details about the things I did to my motorcycle and what I think that any motorcycle traveler should do, and then some of the brief lessons learned. Okay, so about me, former marine scientist, moved out to California for this job. I used to be a phycologist. Anyone know what that is? Like phytoplankton. So plants of the sea. That was what I specialized in. Specifically like algal biofuels, harmful algal, you know, like the red tide that we have here, those type of things. I also did some work with FEMA and EPA on disaster response, environmental remediation, those sort of things. Originally from Philadelphia. I started riding at 25 when I moved out here to California. I bought a Ducati Monster 695. That was my first bike. And then this is my second bike. So not, 70 bikes like Nick, but I have now, 2.5 years of riding. I feel like I have some experience under my belt. And fun fact, I once swam out to an iceberg on this trip in Patagonia. So I get asked this question all the time, why did I do it? Everyone's got their own reasons. For me, it's not like I had an event in my life. I didn't have like a breakup or some sort of devastating turning point. I was actually very content with my life. But when I turned 30, I decided to quit my job, sell everything, and just hit the road, right? And my rationale was that I thought I wanted to do this trip. And it was just something that as life continued to go on, I saw my friends start getting married, having kids, which are things that I wanted as well. But I also had this feeling, this dream of kind of going on an adventure like this. And I figured now is the best time, right? Because you can always find excuses. Things will always come up. It just gets harder and harder. So if you're going to do it now. So with the trip, usually anxiety of quitting your job, giving up the lease on your place, saying goodbye to all your friends and family. That was probably the hardest part. But for me, the actual trip wasn't that difficult because not knowing where I'm going is kind of a part of leaving in the first place, right? To kind of get out there and explore. So that was kind of the more exciting part. And once you got going, at least for me, I never really regretted starting this trip. So here's the route in a nutshell, right? 2.5 years, about 70,000 miles, 19 different countries. Started in San Diego. I had my surfboard on the side, so it was with a focus kind of close to the Pacific coast. Went down the Pacific coastline to Ushuaia, and then came back up the eastern seaboard to Brazil, and then through Central America again. With a lot of interlooping between, which kind of built up the total mileage. So, the goodbye. Nick actually came with me on this one. Great trip. Little close friends with tequila and some good stories shared. But after that, if you guys have been to the Baja, which I'm sure many of you guys have ridden there, it's brutal on a motorcycle, honestly. Especially if you're not sticking to the roads and you're like me looking for surf, the roads from the main road it's all sand. It's all deep sand, right? It's hot, there's no shade, there's no water, and for me, I was not fluent in Spanish at that point, so it was very difficult to also find companionship. So it was a tough start, but also one of the most beautiful spots in my entire trip, and I still remember it very fondly. So then I hit mainland Mexico, and this is where I kind of felt like I started hitting the stride. So notable moments here, I met my Mexican dad who put me on a radio show, a couple magazine articles. He hosted me for 3 weeks, and he introduced me. It's just kind of this chain with the motorcycle community, kind of like what Nick said, right? I met this guy on the ferry from La Paz to Mazatlan, and he told me, hey, he was actually the president of a KLR club in Mexico. He thought that this bike was a KLR 650 because it looks like one, right? Like a first generation. And so he came up, approached me, talking about my trip, and he's like, oh, hey, I have a friend in Mazatlan who has a hotel. You should go hang out with him. So I went with him, stayed with him. Then he gave me his friend's contact in Guadalajara, who's this guy, Rene. And then he gave me a contact for a guy in Zacatecas, Aguascalientes, and it just exploded into this chain of motorcycle help throughout the world, which was honestly the best part of this trip. But yeah, another notable thing is that I upgraded my suspension, which actually turned out to be softer than my original one. That was kind of a mistake. Because I put it on, and then my bike, I actually had to cut my foot stand 2 inches to because the bike started sinking lower, you know? So obviously it wasn't as stiff as the original one I had. But I rode it out for the entire trip. She still has that on. And here also, I received a package from Rene up with, since he's part of this riding group, he wanted me to deliver these jerseys internationally throughout the trip. So through Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, I had a jersey to give to somebody, which was kind of annoying having that, because when you're on the bike, you're thinking about every ounce, every bit of space. But at the same time, I knew that was an immediate friend when I got there to give him the shirt. So I undertook that task. And then here, Kike, that's the guy I met on the ferry. When I got to the Yucatan, in the Playa del Carmen kind of area on the northeastern part of Mexico, I met up with him. With him, I replaced my steering head bearing. This was kind of the first major work that I did on the motorcycle, along with basic maintenance, right? Tire swap, brake pads, air filter, oil change, those type of things. And here, another thing I want to say was make stickers. If you guys are going to go on a trip, they were so worth it for the price. The first time I made them, my friend actually made them for me because he had a fabrication store. He was like, do you want stickers? If you want one, just make me a design. So I just made him something real quick and gave it to him, started posting them everywhere. You give them to friends, and then they just put them on something like a Frisbee or on a wall, and then they see it later. To this day, last week, someone just hit me up because they had it on their computer. And oh, hey, I saw this and I was thinking about you, So it's a great way to kind of keep in touch and just nice memorabilia to have. Yes, Nick?
Speaking of Jack, you noticed the sticker of the Ovary Motorcycle Club?
Oh, yeah.
What is that about?
The Ovary Motorcycle Club is a female-only motorcycle club that I met in the southern part of Brazil, in Florianopolis. So that's the why it's kind of stands out like that.
Some mother named her son Eladio, which I think is a name in Brazil, and it was just his motorcycle club. I think.
Maybe. I mean, the name, that would be a weird one because Ovario means, ovary as well. And so it would be like naming that in English. No, but it's because it's a female-only motorcycle club that I met on the road. Okay, and so here's one of the motor magazine articles I had. This is obviously in Anza Borrego. Right, and down through Central America, very gnarly roads, honestly. Steep gravel, a lot of roadblocks, river crossings, high mountains, but also a really cool spot. I have great memories, beautiful place, awesome people, just a very interesting culture. I was mostly excited for South America when I started my trip because everyone thinks that, right? We're all thinking of Patagonia, Colombia, Peru, Machu Picchu, Salar de Uyuni. These are the highlight spots, but Central America also has a lot worth seeing as well. And it's a lot shorter too, right? If you're trying to go down just to Panama and back or to Costa Rica, it's the mileage. When you get down south, it's just so vast that you're spending a lot of time just riding through nothing between the major highlights. So yeah, then across the Panama Canal, there's a couple different ways to do this. If you guys have any questions about what's going on or how to get your bike across, the logistics of the travel, please reach out to me. I'll have my contact information at the end. But either way, you can ship it through a cargo plane, or you can take it on a container boat, right? Costs about the same, a little over $1,000 each way. But with the cargo plane, it takes 1 day to get to Bogota. With the container, it takes almost 2 weeks to get to Cartagena or Cali. So it's, yes, Todd.
So you're talking about getting around the Darien Gap.
Yeah, around the Darien Gap.
Okay, I was curious with the Monster being your first bike, and then you got this bike, how much dirt experience did you have before you even set out?
I'll go over that. Before I set out, I had a good amount of dirt experience, but that's because I trained with Nick. The first time I went out with Nick, I mean, he knows, we were on like a very moderate road. I fell 11 times. I sprained my ankle and my wrist. Like, it was bad. But it was very humbling as well. You know, I felt very confident because I was a pretty good rider on pavement. But as you guys know, if you guys do dirt riding, it's like a completely different beast in how you weigh yourself, how you can trust the bike lean. It's a different beast.
Can you just say real quick what the Darien Gap is? People might not know.
Right. So the Darien Gap is essentially 100 or 60, like about 100 miles between Panama and Colombia, where it's just all jungle, no developed roadways. So there's no possible way to get from one country to another by land, except by crossing through a dense jungle, which not only for the vegetation and kind of the logistical nightmares to get through it, but it could also, you know, there's other dangers that could possibly be there as well. You know, it's known for having sketchy activity because it's the only land connection between two continents, right? There are things that get transported and stuff. It's just not somewhere that you would probably want to try doing by yourself. Yeah. Sorry, you had a question?
So what did you find to do? You ship the container.
I did it on the cargo plane.
So did you look into the snow ride at all?
I did. Actually, I had an appointment with them,
Yeah.
and they canceled. Apparently, the month before I was supposed to go, because they do it monthly, which is awesome. You pay like a little more, you get to sail for a couple days to the San Blas Islands. The problem was that apparently someone on the trip before me didn't have their papers in order, and so when they got to Aduana in Colombia, they were like, no, never again. You know, they like relinquished the bike, and they kind of stopped them from allowing to do so. And last I heard, because I came up as well, and so I was interested in doing the sailboat experience, but it's still not available. It might be available, you know, when you guys hopefully decide to do your trip if you're thinking about it, but to my knowledge right now, it's not. Yeah. Okay, and so this is the first time that I had a major motorcycle accident. I should have put a map of where this place was, because in the northern Peruvian desert, it was like nothing. It was literally the place I broke down was just like 4 to 5 hour radius of just pure desert and bad dudes, honestly. It was one of the most sketchy places I went through. Just because I like to wild camp. This was somewhere where the locals were telling me like every time, no, you're crazy, like get out of here, like don't camp. And you could feel it, you know, you see someone like looking at you from a distance whenever you try to find a good spot to camp. But anyway, so I burned my clutch. Luckily I was with my friend and I had my tow strap. So he told me 2 hours north to the nearest town. And there I had to wait. I couldn't find these clutch plates anywhere for my DR650, which sucked. So you can see the steels and fibers here that I finally got from my friend that sent it to me from New York, because I looked through all of my riding groups, all my connections, trying to find anywhere in South America. They didn't have it. I had to get my friend to send it to me. It got to Peru in 2 days, and then it took the aduana 30 days to let it go. You know, for no reason. That's just how things go down there, right? You gotta just roll with the punches. So I finally got them, but at the same time, I got to do a major rehash of some of the motorcycle, right? I changed out the spark plugs. If you guys never used Iridium spark plugs, they're the bee's knees. They really spark up the bike really well. Along with changing out the drivetrain, sprockets, chain, obviously. Did a valve adjustment, right? If you guys have a bike that has where you can access the engine block easily, it's something you should learn how to do. Swapped out the clutch, brake rotors, oil filter, pretty standard things. Okay, and then from there, I went down to Bolivia and Argentina. This was at the cusp, towards the end of fall, before winter. I had to kind of pound miles because I was trying to get to my Buenos Aires, where I had a flight to go to Korea for my brother's wedding. So this was actually it was beautiful, but also incredibly unenjoyable because it was just so cold. You can see here how cold these temperatures were, and as you guys know, as riders, it's cold, and then there's another cold when just seeping into your bones because the wind chill, right? Because you're driving, and so you're trying to hit this ratio of going fast enough to get to where you want to go, but going slow enough that your hands are going to freeze off, right? To me, and it made me crazy, honestly, and I feel like I almost died a couple times just from how cold it was camping out. But yeah, it was also a beautiful area. You know, just really interesting landscapes. The Altiplano, you're at 12,000 feet at a median height, so it's really high. The vegetation's interesting. The salad, just the natural landscapes are incredible, right? And then I finally got to Argentina. I delivered the last jersey to my friend, and I finally got rid of that package that I got in Guadalajara. So yeah, just a quick plug. Then this was the only break I took from the trip. I went back to Korea for 2 months, saw my family, ate a lot of good food that I missed. It's a cool country if you guys ever get a chance to go. Okay, then I came back to more motorcycle problems, right? So I got back to Buenos Aires. I went up through Uruguay and Brazil up to Sao Paulo because I didn't know at the time that I was going to go back up. So I thought I was just going to go to Ushuaia. The original plan was to get to Ushuaia in 6 to 8 months and then sell my bike and fly back, right? So I did a little loop just to say that I went to those countries. And then there, my clutch burned again, which I think the second time was due to a misadjusted clutch cable. But anyway, it was actually really bad. It was like on a highway in Chile, going up a road. You know, I don't know if you guys have felt the feeling of a clutch starting to go out, but it's a terrible feeling, right? So it like starts going out. I'm on this highway with no shoulder. It finally goes out, and so I'm like pushing this 600-pound bike up in like 100-degree weather. And eventually I get to a spot where I can get off in a gas station. I collapse on the ground. I feel like I'm fading. You know, honestly, I think I passed out. This guy comes up, this trucker runs up to me, resuscitates me, you know, he like slaps me, throws water in my face, feeds me some very cold mango juice, which I still remember to this day. And then it turned out perfectly. Like he just delivered his load down in the south, and he was heading back up to Santiago de Chile, which is where I was going, the capital of Chile. So then he loaded my bike up in his Empe semi-truck. He bought me a Sloppy Joe and a Red Bull, classic trucker meal. Very nice guy. I mean, he's just really still, and he's actually the guy that saw my sticker last week and hit me up, asking how I was doing, you know? So just the people you meet, you know, like Nick said, the first person that's gonna stop, he obviously was a rider himself. He had a motorcycle. So he saw me in a point of need, in a very vulnerable position, and he helped out, and something that I'm grateful for, just, you know, to humanity for the rest of my life, honestly. Right, so the clutch burned out. You can see some notching on my clutch basket. Nothing crazy. Again, couldn't get the plates in Chile, so I had to wait for my friend to send them to me again. But then I got it, started going down to Patagonia, right? This is finally where the dream started. I put these stickers here, these photos here because I had some friends come to visit as well. Highlight would be I caught a salmon, which was a dream for me, and made some sushi right there. That was always something I wanted to do. And then I put this picture here because, you know, with the motorcycle, you kind of have to be meticulous with your gear, right? So you can't, I went backpacking, but I couldn't bring rain gear, so I had to use my motorcycle rain gear. So everyone was making fun of me because I had this big neon jacket on the entire time when it was raining. That's gonna fall. Right. And for a plug, I had my fly fishing rods with me. If you guys are ever in Patagonia, beautiful riding. It's really, the landscapes are worth it. You know, what you guys think it is, it's worth it. So if you can ever make your boat down there, do it. And if you're into fishing, nothing better than when you catch your own fish and you can cook it over open fire in your campsite. But some of the precautions, right? Strong winds, really strong winds. I mean, gusts of over 60, 70 miles per hour, and they can really blow you off. They're sporadic. You know, first you have, I don't know if you guys have ever ridden like really strong winds, but you're really counter-leaning into it. You're counter-leaning and then it gusts, so then you get knocked off. And the worst part is when either you're on gravel. This is the infamous, like the Ruta 40, if you guys have heard of it, Route 40. It's like a 60-mile stretch. That's infamous because that's like the only part that if you're trying to get to Ushuaia, you have to go through this gravel section. There's no way around it. So it's known for knocking off a lot of novice bikers. I helped a lot of people get up as well. One of the French people that I was traveling with, he like came in to visit his friends that are road traveling, and he just gave up halfway through. We had to find him a truck to get him the bike. So this is why it's important to like learn how to ride off-road. Yeah. But you can see here the trucks are very dangerous. So when you're counter-leaning, the real thing you have to be careful of is the way that the wind is coming and the way that the semi's coming, because the semi-truck creates this vacuum, right? So you're leaning. The semi-truck comes and it pushes the wind in the other direction. So then you have to lean and you have to know when to like force your body back. You're literally pushing your entire body so it doesn't knock you off. Actually, one of the scariest moments I had was going down, you know, and this is going at fast speeds. The semi's going like 80, I'm going like 60. And I remember this one time when I was almost getting to Ushuaia, Rio Grande, which is towards the end of the tip. I had the semi come on the other side. I was waiting for it, and I did it, but the push was just so much stronger than I was expecting, and it actually knocked me onto this side, right? But then I bounced. I'm going like, oh shit, because you think you're gonna lose control. Somehow I stuck it, but it was just, that was one of those ones where I can't blame her. I was just thinking about like, wow, how short life is, because that could have been terrible. Yeah, just be careful. Okay, so then with all the beautiful scenes, again, the bike at this point had like 50, 60,000 miles on it. It was getting old, right? The biggest L was I had these tube rolls at the back of my bike here. That's where I kept my tools, and it fell off on a bumpy road when I took it out because my shift lever was coming loose. So I had to get it cut. I had someone weld it on. We just ended up tack welding it on. But things happen with your bike. Just kind of know how to deal with these problems as they come. Right, and then I finally made it to Ushuaia. And this is where I felt like the trip was going to end. I put this here because there's a lot of travelers going through here. You're going to see RVs, you're going to see trucks, you're going to see motorcyclists, cyclists, backpackers, just every type of traveler. They kind of want to make it to the end of the road. So it's a special spot in that respect. All right, so I got there. I almost sold the bike, almost. And then I felt like I could keep going. Like I was satisfied, but I also felt like not fully satisfied, right? And I was just thinking like, okay, if I did quit my trip right now, what would happen when I get back? I would be unemployed. Not like I really had anyone like waiting for. I mean, I had friends and family, but they can see me now, So I was just yes.
How long did it take you?
It took me about 2 years. Yeah, right. So I mean, my original time frame was 6 to 8 months. Just as with travel, especially like me, it's just kind of why not just extend it? You find a place you like, you meet someone, you just end up staying for an extra day, extra week, extra month. Things kind of.
Where did you spend the most time in Mexico?
I think in total, Mexico, probably 6 to 7 months of that was in Mexico. Yeah. Right. So then when I decided to go back up, that's when I had to rehash the bike, right? Swap out the tires, change the chain. I'm a huge proponent of the chain breaker tool. I think everyone should bring one. Nick recommended me on it. My other friends who are motorcycle enthusiasts all told me like, oh, you're never going to need that. I found it very useful. I'd replaced my own chain 3 times, and then one time it snapped on the road. It was very helpful to have it. I think it's worth the weight and space, personally. Swapped out the push rubbers, as you know. My wheel bearings were kind of shot. You can see how crappy this one looks. Yeah, so then I started to go up, right? Went up through Argentina, through Uruguay, Brazil, and the most notable things that I caught if you guys, anyone know what the Dorado is? It's a very, very famous prize fly fishing. It fights very well, it jumps. It was a cool catch. Anyway, so I did the entire coastline of Brazil, right? And heading up towards the Amazon, it was tough, not gonna lie. It was very rainy. It rained almost every single day, just nonstop. It was beautiful at times, you can see, but at the same time, I mean, look at this mud. Just imagine, you guys are all riders. Riding through something like that is just terrible, especially with a heavy back-weighted bike, right? And this is what you see. You just see dread, just dark clouds in the distance all the time, knowing that you were gonna ride through it, you're gonna get wet, no matter what. It was.
The bike over there.
Yeah, you can go for it. Do you want me to go on the other side or something?
No.
Okay. All right. Right. So I got to the mouth of the Amazon River. I went up to a little detour through Suriname, French Guiana. I came back down. You can see, very muddy conditions. And for anyone that's curious, you can cruise the Amazon River on these ferries they have. So I took a ferry from the mouth up to the tri-border with Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. So essentially it goes upstream of the Amazon River.
It's so
I make fun of my girl. And then, so I got to Colombia, and then from there, I shipped the bike again up through the Darien Gap and went through Central America again. And this was, to me, one of the most enjoyable parts of the trip. I was very tired of traveling. I would say around the 2-year mark, I kind of was ready to stop, honestly. But this was great because it's kind of, I just only stayed with the people and the places that I loved on the way down, right? and I didn't know them that I was going to see them again when I left them. But then when I decided to come back up, you know, it was awesome to be able to like tell them the stories of what happened throughout that time. Yeah, just a really special moment for me. Okay, and then this is just a article I did at the end. So when I got back, you know, I had no idea what I was going to do. I kind of knew the things I wanted in my life because I had a lot of time to reflect on it, but still wasn't sure. I would say the most notable things that kind of stuck with me when I got back was, you know, everyone speaking English. That was very weird. The overwhelming choice at supermarkets or just anywhere, right? Down there, here, when I buy, for example, tires on my motorcycle, it's like, oh, I got 17 different options. Which ADV tire? Do I want 10, 90, 80, 20? You guys all know how it is, right? There, it's like, oh, what tire size is that? Maybe we have one type, if you're lucky, you know? And so the choice is just completely different. Here, everyone drives so much faster on the highway. You know, this, as you guys know, is not the fastest bike on the road. Down there is pretty fast. Here, I'm the slowest object on the road, which is not a good place to be, right? And also, one thing that stuck out to me is that motorcycles have to follow the same rules as cars here, right? You can't even park on the sidewalk. I mean, even in like Germany, they allow that, and they love their rules, right? So it was kind of strange to kind of have the most familiar circumstances kind of give me this weird anxiety. And then I got back to driving a car. I didn't really like the feeling, but also being dry and warm was incredibly nice. This is me getting detained on my way back. This is on the San Ysidro border. They locked me in a cage and just like inspected all my stuff for about 2 hours. Very, very funny story. I forgot to mention also in the Nicaraguan border. Well, I got a slide on that actually, but I got stuck there for 9 hours and interrogated if I was a North Korean spy, which is kind of hilarious. Right. So the reality of life on two wheels, right? As adventure riders, we're kind of a jack of all trades. We do a little bit of exploring, a little bit of riding. As you guys know, long rides in the saddle hurt your ass. They hurt your neck. Just know how to deal with it and try to optimize your bike for comfort when you can. And the biggest part for me is like learning to anticipate problems. You know, preventative maintenance is the number one thing. Things that you can do to kind of make your trip the best possible. So, I get asked about the solo trip a lot as well. You know, were you lonely? What did you do? Because you're not finding anyone to travel with you. And it's true that I couldn't convince anyone to travel with me when I started, but at the same time, I kind of wanted the solo trip, you know? And I liked it because I felt like it made me mature and that anything that happened, it was just all on me. And the thing is, it also never really felt that lonely because you meet so many people on the road, especially the motorcycle community is just so opening. And you know, I tried like couch surfing and other ways of meeting friends, and it works. But something about the motorcycle community, when you meet someone, or that's the thing, they come up to you. You know, I'm at a gas station or at a restaurant, and they see my bike, and they like come up and like, oh, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? Like, they're just so interested in the story, and they'll be like, you want to come over to my house? You want to come eat with me? You want to come meet with my family? We're about to go to the beach, and then you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm alone. Why not, right? And it just has turned into just such strong friendships, and I feel like the friendships that you get from the motorcycle community really start off at a much higher level than everything else, just because you already have that shared connection. So I never felt that lonely, right? I almost felt like, especially towards the end, I felt like almost too much. Like I was looking more for solitude because there was just too much social interaction at times. So yeah, another tip, don't plan to work unless you're only hopping in like cities. Here are some of the average internet speeds that I was dealing with. This is the download speed, you know, 1.01. I had 5 once. You can't even load a web page with these speeds, right? Right. And here's the bureaucracy, right? If you guys have done border crossing before, we all know you get a little anxious doing them. They're annoying. I know I've done like 50 of them over this trip. The thing you have to remember is that, you know, the paper says it, but everything is flexible, right? So be polite, be kind, don't try to bribe, just make them like you and empathize with you, and then you can get through, right? But yeah, it's a soul-destroying process, and they don't like it either. That's the thing, is a lot of the times, like, I was frustrated, especially like some of these random borders in like the Brazilian Amazon, where these guys have never dealt with a bike importation permit. I never dealt with it, obviously, and then so there was just like they were clearly frustrated because they had no idea what to do. Their internet was down, whatever. These type of things happen. Yeah. And here's the Honduras-Nicaraguan border where I was there for 9 hours. 4 hours on the Honduran side. Only 20 people ahead of me. 2 people working. That took 4 hours. So sometimes just like that. And the other side, I got X-rayed, pulled into this room with 3 military officers, and they asked me all these questions about me. About my ethnicity and origin. Funny, very funny. I mean, they're clowns, you know. But that's you have to just smile and roll with the punches. If you act sour and mean or disgruntled, that's just going to make things worse. Yeah. Yeah. And as you guys know, like I said, with South America, sometimes you just do distance for the sake of distance. This was, to me, was a very annoying part of the trip, but you can keep yourself entertained. Audiobooks. I'm a huge proponent of audiobooks, right? Music can only get you so far. Sometimes you need to just twist the throttle for 6 to 10 hours to get to the spot you want to get to, and just you can be with your own thoughts, podcasts, just something to whatever works for you. You know, everyone's different. And the motorcycle life, it's a sedentary one, right? We all know that if you ride for like an hour, it's exhausting. Your body, I don't know why it's tired. Maybe just micro adjustments, but at the end of the day, I mean, here, look at my stats. You know, I walk like a mile a day. You don't move your legs because you're moving everywhere with the bike, right? So find a way to regularly move your body. For me, that was with resistance bands, but you know, yoga, stretching, calisthenics. Just be mindful that your body's probably going to atrophy just riding this motorcycle, unless you find even just a walk at the end of the day. Yeah. So, joys of the motorcycle, right? Has everyone read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? Yeah, right. So, you know, in the car, you're in a compartment. On the motorcycle, you know, the frame is gone. You're in the contact with everything. You really get to experience the smells, the temperature, the climate. You can stop any point you want. It's a different experience, and that's why we all ride motorcycles, yeah? So, and also, in South America or in other parts of the world, the best part of the motorcycle, obviously, is leveraging your position on the road. Always get into the front. There's traffic. It doesn't matter. You're going to lane split all the way to the front, you know, to the end. That really makes you enjoy riding a motorcycle is when you can maneuver through different things. You know, you see the road in a different way, right? You're not subject to the same rules cars are. And again, this is the main reason I don't regret the motorcycle, is the riding groups everywhere. Literally everywhere. And they would always approach you towards the end. There's even these WhatsApp groups where you can have a riding group for, you know, Mexico, for a certain town, for international. And they would always host you, and they would always be like, hey, where are you going next? Oh, I have a buddy there. I know someone there. What, you have any motorcycle problems? I can help you out. I know a guy here, you know? These type of connections really formed a long chain that made my trip as special as it was. So, go with the flow, right? Things are never as bad or good as they seem. The only thing you control is your attitude. And just keep in mind, you can always make things worse, right? And there's not just one worse. There's a whole spectrum of bad possibilities. So just keep that in mind as you guys go. I mean, this is life advice, right? Just right. And some of the bad things about the motorcycle. As we know, it's not. There's advantages and disadvantages. For me, we all know it's more dangerous inherently. Just riding motorcycles, you're more vulnerable, right? I had many near-death experiences on the motorcycle. Thankfully, I came back in one piece, but there are many times that I questioned what just happened. You know, kind of like what I was talking about with the strong winds. The things just happen and put you in a near-life death situation. You're exposed to the elements. Your things are also vulnerable, right? Right here, it's fine because I have the boxes, but I also had bags, my surfboard, things that are just easy for someone to just walk by and grab and go. You know, they don't even have to break a window or anything. But funny enough, I mean, I got like some small stuff robbed, like things that were like this chain loop on my dashboard and those type of things. But the only time that I got like actually robbed was in Costa Rica, and that's when I left my stuff in my friend's car. It's just funny that 2.5 years worried about getting robbed, and I only got robbed. Actually, I didn't get robbed. They got robbed. All my stuff was like in the back, and they only took. Thank God, you know. But I mean, not thank God. It sucked for them, but for me, it didn't suck as much. It was. But funny how things happen. Yeah. Right. And then be cognizant. You know, when you're riding the motorcycle, again, you're super exposed. these are the things I thought about every single day, right? The rain, the cold, the heat, your water, you know, how much, especially if it's scarce, you have to have a way to to make water potable, and also how much water you're going to carry. You know, I was carrying anywhere from like 4 to 8 liters on the bike, but that's heavy, it takes up a lot of space, but you need at least 2 liters a day, right? Unless you're stopping every single day to fill up water, and there, you can't just fill up water from the tap, you have to buy it or find a different way, you know. Fresh, drinkable water is not a common resource in many parts of the world.
That's actually one of the questions that just came in, is if you had any issues with hydration. So, did you ever have any challenges with hydration?
Yeah, mainly in the deserts, right? So in Baja, like I was saying, there's many stretches where I would go, because I would carry 8 liters of water, which meant like 3-4 days maximum that I could go without it. And that was with me just drinking it. That meant no rinsing off at the end of the day, no cleaning anything, just purely to drink. And so there were a couple times that I had water issues, but through like Central America, for example, or when you get down through like Argentina, Chile, a lot of times there are freshwater streams. So for me, I had a water purifying filter, as well as some iodine tablets that I carried. And so I would just refill my water supplies that way on the road. So usually you can find, I mean, that's the thing, is that with thinking that I would be, and I did spend a lot of time alone, but at the same time, you're always like 100 miles from civilization. Like you can always find food, water, shelter if you're really seeking it. You know, there's people everywhere. So, but if you're like me and you like to get out in the wild, seek natural shelter, right? You're going to think about these things, insects, but use the geography to your advantage. Hills, rocks, trees, wind blocks, shade, these type of things.
So in that regard, did you have previous experience with serious camping and lightweight camping, or was this where you learned?
No, I mean, I had experience with backpacking more than anything, and some car camping. But backpacking also is, I didn't really put in this presentation, but if anyone's curious and would like tips on how to prepare for your own camping expeditions, if that's something you're curious in, just reach out to me and we can kind of talk and optimize your pack. But this is also something that's very individual based on everyone's needs and comforts and what they want to carry. So if you guys want to have the discussion, I'm always open. But I had a lot of experience with lightweight camping prior to this trip, which I feel like really extrapolates well into a trip like this. Another thing I want to point out was mean dogs. I mean, I love dogs. I had dogs all my life, but something about these dogs, and some of them are chill. Like, look at this guy. I was fishing. He just came up to hang. They always come up to hang, and then you start the bike motor, and something about the sound just makes them go crazy. I don't know if you guys have had this happen. I guess there's like a higher pitch or something. Like, they could be your best friend. You start the bike motor, they immediately come and try to bite you and chase you. Something about it, something to be cognizant of, and they're just everywhere. I mean, there's feral dogs in Chile, for example. These dogs smelled some uncooked rice that I had in my tent, and they came and ripped it apart and destroyed my tent that night. You know, it was just very demoralizing, but you got to be careful. And a shout out to the kitties I met on the trip, because I wasn't really a cat guy before this trip, but the cats are chill. You know, they'll come, they'll snuggle, they'll sleep on it, but then they'll leave. The dog comes up, the dog's kind of like dirty and wet, and they want to like jump in your tent with you, and you don't really want them. You know, they might be like flea ridden, they're cute, but like, yeah. I mean, I think this trip might have made me more of a cat person, honestly. Right. So I know you guys are mainly motorcycle riders. I would say I'm mainly a surfer, but I didn't really add too much about surfing in this trip, except to say that never again, right? So I don't know if you see on some of my photos, on this side of my motorcycle, on that box, I built out a surf rack out of aluminum seat channel, which served me well, so you can see it here. But surfing on the motorcycle, honestly, you know, provides this romantic vision of a guy riding out in solidarity into the wilderness, looking for waves, which is kind of what it was, but at the same time, it kind of sucks, honestly. Limited quiver, you can only carry one board, right? They're large and heavy. The places you want to go, sand, ocean, beach. So you're riding through like deep sand a lot of time, and sometimes you fall. I mean, we've all fallen on sand if you ride it. So I fell, it makes you tired. Sometimes I would fall, the bike would fall on my leg, I'd sprain my leg, I would twist my neck, and then I get there and I want to surf these waves, but my body's just not in the condition to get out there, right? Finding a safe place with a motorcycle when you surf. This was honestly the most annoying one. Sometimes you'd ride up to a point and you'd want to get out there, but there's people around, right? And you have all this stuff exposed. You can't just go out there, out of sight, out of mind for 2 to 3 hours because you know you're going to come back and your stuff's going to be gone. So always trying to find a spot to leave your stuff was very annoying as well. And then having to put on all the gear again. I'm a all the gear all the time kind of guy. You go ride, it's wet, you're cold, you don't have any water to rinse with, and then you have to put on all your gear again, especially the helmet with the wet hair, and then now it starts to smell because it's wet on the inside. A lot of disadvantages. You had a question?
I was gonna say, how the surfboard helped you wind and kind of come?
It was terrible. Yeah, it was like a sail. And I didn't think that it was quite that bad until I got to the spots where it would get like 60 miles per hour, and literally the wind would push it, and it would make my bike move like 3 feet.
Yeah, when you, doing it over again, you come to surfboard and you just go to like surfboard, just rent a board, like, have I done that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would rent it. I would probably just do it in like a van or an RV, honestly.
But if you want to do it on a motorcycle, there's a lot of places to stop. And
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would try to go to popular spots. Yep, exactly. I think that would be the best way to do it.
Gene, could you, when you get a question, repeat it because these folks have a hard time hearing them.
Okay.
So just repeat the question.
Yeah, easy to do.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the aftermath of the trip, right? I feel happy to be working towards the future. That was kind of something that towards the end of my trip I was getting anxious about was, I'm traveling, but I had a good idea of what I wanted to do with my life, but I wasn't really working towards it while on the road. You kind of hit diminishing returns, in my opinion, on a trip like this. But it's nice. Like something like this is the first time, like I said, I've really thought about this trip since I've taken it. But I look at these photos and I'm just thinking as an adventure, right? But at the time, it was such adversity, and so it's nice to recount it at leisure and just kind of think about the things that happened. And that's when you really realize that things are never as bad or as good as they seem. They're just all experiences that you take with you. And I knew the moments were out there, didn't know what they looked like, but just started riding, and memories and experiences started happening, and now they're a part of me forever. So quick detour here. Best eats. For me, you guys have heard it, carne en su jugo, which means meat in its own juice from Guadalajara. To me, I think this was the best thing that I ate on the trip, although it's hard to say what the best thing was. For me, the 3 best countries with food was Mexico, Peru, and Suriname. Especially Suriname was a sleeper country that I didn't even know anything about, honestly, before going there. I was very ignorant. It's a previous Dutch colony. The food there I thought was really good because they have a lot of Indonesian and Indian influenced immigrants going there. So if you guys have been to Indonesia, like warungs, they just put a lot of spices in their food. So it's very flavorful, spicy, and it also has like the Caribbean influence, the French influence, Dutch, Latin influence. It's it's like a melting pot of a lot of different things. And then some of the funkier things I ate, escamoles from Catherine's home country here, who's on the front, Colombia. I wasn't a huge fan. They're too chitinous. I don't know if you guys, not that I'm like an insect expert, but something like grasshoppers, much tastier because they're crunchy and salty. This one was just tastes like a bug. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. And then next to it are the escamoles, which are ant larvae from Mexico. These were pretty good, kind of nutty. Only thing is they were a little expensive, so I don't know if I would pay for that again. Similar to this, the cuy, which is the guinea pig that they have in the Indian mountains. You can see it looks very grotesque. They're actually quite tasty. The thing is that there's just not that much meat on them, and so you're paying a high price for something that's just not, where you gotta just eat like a chicken leg instead, right? And this is probably the worst thing I ate in Bolivia. It was, I don't even know, it was like a pot of organs. It was all like the leftover discard pieces from a bunch of different animals. They put it into this stew. I tried it. It was disgusting, and I've eaten a lot of disgusting in my life. That was the most disgusting thing. But the reality is, this also depends on your budget, right? But for me, most meals are simple. A lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, fruit when I could get it, but fruit is heavy and it's mushy, and a lot of canned tuna as well. But canned tuna adds up. It's like $1, $2 per can. So depending on what type of budget you guys are on, it can limit what you bring. And just with the motorcycle as well, you don't have a fridge. You're thinking about the weight to calorie ratio, and you need something that can take a beating and endure heating. I had my food in those boxes, the top panniers and the side ones. They're getting hit by the sun like 16 hours per day. They get hot, really hot. So sometimes you open it up and it's just disgustingly, everything's just so melted, you know. And so you have to take usually types of foods that are not the most healthy, unfortunately, unless you're stopping around. So just a fun fact, layman's coffee sucked everywhere except for in Colombia and Argentina, which is funny because they produce so much coffee in that region of the world, but they just export it. Those are the places where I felt like I could get a good cup of coffee just anywhere, and most people drank good coffee. The worst offenders were Brazil and then Chile. Chile, you can only find this powdered Nescafé. Brazil, it's the powdered Nescafé, but they just put a crap ton of sugar in it, and you can never get it without sugar in it. Like there'll be guys be like, no, my coffee's not that sweet, but it just literally tastes like it's 100%. You could not dissolve more sugar into that coffee. It's disgusting. Right. So some of the motorcycle tips. My 3 essentials. Basic mechanical knowledge of your motorcycle. Learn how to ride off-road. Be able to communicate in the local language, depending on the trip you're doing. For me, it was easy because Latin America, just learned one language for the most part. If you're going somewhere like Europe or Asia, or obviously more difficult because there's so many different languages to speak. But you will break down, right? If you guys are riding motorcycles, you know that they require way more attention than a car. You have to be much more meticulous with preventative maintenance. And if anything, you have to know how to diagnose the problem. You don't have to know how to do everything. You have to know at least kind of where the problem is or like what's happening, so then you can articulate that to somebody like a mechanic or someone that can help you out, right? You can't just say like, my bike's not working. You have to be like, my bike's not working, but I think it has something to do with the drivetrain, or the sound is off, or like doesn't seem like the air to fuel mixture is quite right. Just kind of like give them. You have to have something to give them to work with. Yeah. For me, it was great with the DR650 because it's a very simple bike, air cooled, carbureted. It's the most simple a motorcycle could possibly be. And for me, I had a great time disassembling, reassembling it, really figuring out how energy transferred, how fuel went in from the tank to the engine, how combustion happened, how the pistons pushed, and it's just a very easy to follow the chain of energy through a motorcycle like this, which is why I chose it. You're gonna fall a lot if you're riding off-road. How many people here have like off-roading experience or have ridden their motorcycles off-road, right? How many of you have fallen? How many of you have not fallen off-road? Exactly, nobody, yeah. We all fall, even when you're good, when you don't expect it. Sometimes my worst falls have been for example, they've all been in sand, honestly, but they've been in sand, and then you're going at a high speed, you feel good, your weight's forward, and then there's like a rock hidden in the sand or something that just immediately turns your front fork and you fall. It's the things like that. It just happens to all of us. The wind pushed me over a couple times, but learn how to ride off-road, learn how to control your motorcycle. And that's the thing, is that you recover from each fall a little worse than before, right? If you're lucky, you just get your bruised ego. If you're unlucky, you got a cut, a scrape, a bruise, something bent on the motorcycle, something irrevocably broke off. The things little by little add up. So all the gear all the time. Here's my internal armor. Just make sure you have quality stuff that can protect you, especially your head.
That's funny. That's the very last comment right now. All the gear all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I feel vulnerable if I don't wear all my gear at this point. Just thinking about things that can happen.
Kevin Thomas says, all the gear all the time. More riders would enjoy their trips if they follow that rule. And I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, huge proponent. Right. And then the third point, break the language barrier. People will like you on a deeper level if you can communicate in their language, right? And this is something that everyone in this room is capable of doing. You guys are all clearly adjusted, intelligent people, fluent in your native language at least, right? And how did you get that fluency? Just time passively learning this language because people were speaking to you. You made inferences somewhere subconsciously in your brain. You guys are all capable of doing it. You just have to put the effort and dedication into doing it. And if you're going to do a trip where you're going to a foreign country, at least try learning some of the basic words, right? There's a plethora of free online resources. And my biggest tip is just lose the fear of embarrassment. Just spit it out. I see a lot of beginners, learners kind of just thinking about what they're going to say, and it really disrupts the flow of conversation, when it'd be better if you just talk, message, you can just get the point across. You know, it doesn't have to sound right. It's like charades, right? People, the worst charade partners are the ones that just sit there and think without just kind of giving you guesses to make inferences. So just kind of do the same. People aren't judging you about your language ability. They're just trying to communicate, you know? And here's an example I put. When I got to French Guiana, you know, I felt pretty confident because I was like, okay, I speak English, I speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese. A huge percent of the population there only speaks French. I don't speak good French. So I got to the gas station and I'm trying to figure out which one of these pumps is the pump that I need to put in. There's gasoline and diesel, right? I didn't know that gasoline is called Simplon and diesel is called gasoil. And so I went around to like 5 different people asking them, gasoline, no, diesel, no. And they all telling me like, no, this the one. I ended up putting diesel in my tank, right? And this kind soul who spoke Portuguese sucked it out for me, you know, like helped me get it out of my tank. But that was a big L. Yeah. Right. You're gonna make mistakes on a trip like this. I mean, we make mistakes all our life, but you know, you're gonna make decisions you're not proud of, say things you're not gonna regret. And I feel like a trip like this really speeds up your maturity because you confront so many different experiences every single day. For me, you know, they're losing certain things, places I've left. These pictures in both. This is the worst tattoo I ever saw on the trip. So I took a photo and shared it because this guy let his ex-girlfriend tattoo her riding him as stick figures. Regretful, right? And for me, this was one of my biggest mistakes. Is in Peru, I went out surfing. Essentially, me and my buddy rode out to the spot. I didn't want to surf it, but he convinced me to go down. So we're crawling down this. It's super hot. This is all guano bird crap, right? So we're sliding down this like 300-foot scree of covered in bird crap. We get into the water, and the current just ripping. We get into the water immediately. It's like we're moved 30 feet that way, and so we're like paddling. We didn't even catch a wave. We're just trying to fight back to get to the spot we were, and then the waves start coming. Right? It goes 5 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and we're both scared. And ended up spending 3 hours paddling back to the spot we got to. He actually didn't make, you know, it was like a small spot, probably about the size of where you guys are standing now, that you have to shoot in through, and the rocks, you know, are breaking the waves. So there's a lot of water moving around. I don't know if you guys have ever been like swimming in a spot like that. You don't feel like you're moving, right? But the only thing you can do is paddle, or you get drifted out to sea, or die. Yeah, it's.
A quick aside, I have to. When he says surfing, it's like up there. Because I followed him down 9 hours south of the border, brought my surfboard, thinking I was going to surf with them. And I saw the waves, like, this is crazy. I'm going to die out here today, you know? So for like 4 days, I'm just hanging out, taking photos, flying a drone, just to get in it. It's crazy. So he's a surfer, right? Some of the stuff that I've seen him ride from the safe distance, I mean, easily, you know, overcomes this place, so. If you're scared.
Yeah, these are some big waves. Yeah. Anyway, just a mistake. Now just a funny story, right? Adventure is adversity recounted at leisure. So some general tips. If you guys are doing some traveling, take a lot of photos, not just, you know, photos of the beautiful landscape, but just random, regular things. You know, it really creates a photo diary that when you look back on, the images and the memories are so much more vivid when you can recall that exact moment. Know when to act dumb and when to show wit. You know, a question I get asked a lot is dealing with bribes. I got stopped by the police over 20 times on my trip. I never paid a bribe. Never, you know, don't show cash. Know when to act dumb. For me, the tip here would be like, just whenever the police came to me, act like, I acted like I didn't know Spanish, but also just don't act like you know what they're talking about. Don't act like you even can fathom what a bribe is. Like, you would never think of giving money to an officer. Make them deliberately say it. You know, they'll always try to infer it about how you need to go do this and that. But if you just pay him half of what the fine's going to be here, we can both say that's work. No, just be like, no, let's go to the station. You know, nothing wrong with that. And if they ask you for something, for the help, or like point to your passport, just don't act like you know what they're talking about until make them actually say money. They don't want to say it. You know, got away every time. But then know when to show wit. You know, for example, here's the police stop, right? And here's one with the federales, with the guards. That's when I turned the Spanish on. You know, they asked me, what am I doing, where I'm going, told them immediately, and then they just let you go. You know, don't act dumb with those guys. So, trust your gut. That's a big thing. I think everyone here can kind of agree with that statement, right? That gut exists for a reason, from all your shared experiences, some sort of mojo. For example, here, place in Medellin, I got to a spot, my gut was telling me, just like, do not stay here. This was from one of those moto groups. This person in the centro of Medellin told me that she was gonna host me. I went there, it was sketch. You know, there's prostitutes on this side, trans prostitutes on this side, trash everywhere. And then I let her convince me to stay there, and I was regretting every moment. I was gonna leave, and then I left the spot, or I was about to leave the spot going at night, and that was the scene I saw, and I was like, this is probably not good to go out at night in a place like this. Yes, Nick.
How did you let her convince you to stay there?
Well, I mean,
That's okay.
this is a 50-year-old woman. This was with kids. This was not a sexual thing. Yeah.
Hey, this is a no judgment zone.
Yeah. But yeah, don't leave your things unattended. Temper your expectations, right? Your happiness is really what you expect to happen minus what actually happens. So just go with the flow, don't have any expectations, and you'll live your life way more carefree. So now, going into the bike, right? Suzuki DR650, simple, air-cooled, carbureted. I really like this bike. I like working with this bike. It's something I feel confident working on, that I know from iteratively deconstructing and reconstructing it again. And for me, most of the time, the bike is just a machine, but for myself, and I think for other riders that have a favorite bike, you know, they're not just a conglomeration of metal and rubber. They have character and personality, they have their quirks, their nuances, and their behaviors, and then you start to feel like a team, right? Something where the bike's taking care of me, I take care of the bike. And so it feels it feels like a companion. It's not just a machine anymore. It feels almost, to me, like the modern day mechanical speed. So, advantage of the Suzuki DR650, right? It's a hog. Takes hits like a champ. So some of the roads I would go down, these bumpy, rocky roads, I remember just laughing manically because this thing just goes. And I wouldn't have to do any maintenance on it. It lost no oil until 60,000 miles in. And even then, it was just dripping, but nothing even to warrant top-offs. Easy maintenance, again. The carburetor really didn't need to be adjusted, even from the altiplano, 5,000 meters, 15,000 feet, all the way back down to sea level. I only adjusted it like twice, and it started every time. Disadvantages, again, finding the parts was terrible, honestly. Central America was good, but South America, the Suzuki DR650 didn't really ever take off, so it was very hard to find parts for. It's slower than other motorcycles on the pavement, and it's less comfortable, obviously. Some days I'm riding 10, 12 hours on this seat. It's not the most enjoyable experience.
And that's an aftermarket seat too, right?
Yeah, it's an aftermarket seat, yeah. So yeah, learn your bike, maintenance, keep the chain lubed, proper tension, both on the cable and the chain itself. Check the sprocket teeth wear, brake pads, clutch lever play, check oil, potential leaks. For me, the easiest maintenance ones, every 3,000 miles, change your oil, clean your filter. I'm a big fan of the stainless steel filters as opposed to the paper ones for a trip like this. Just carry, either extra gasoline, mix in the gasoline, clean it out, pop it back in. I use the same filter the entire trip. And then the air filter as well, that you guys are familiar with. Right, so I'm not going to go too crazy in this section. If you guys have any questions, just let them out. But body control, here's some of the changes I made onto my bike. Bigger tank was definitely the best one. If I had known that they had, I think they have a 6.7 liter Acerbis tank now, that I would have definitely gotten if that was available when I started this trip.
Did you ever have to carry extra gas?
Yeah. So I had an extra liter, and then there were a couple spots only in Patagonia, only in La Pampa, because that part of Chile, especially on the Argentinian side, you're going sometimes 200 to 300 miles between gas stations. So depending on the range of your motorcycle, and in this case, we wanted to detour into this national park and do some hiking. So what I did was I just bought these cheap soap bottles, or not even, 1 gallon soap things, and I just filled them up and strapped them onto the back of my bike. But yes, Todd.
So what was the average range of the bike?
My bike?
Yeah.
200 miles, 250 miles max. Yeah, with the 5.3 liter tank.
Just to repeat for them.
Yeah, so the range on my bike was about 200 to 250 miles on one tank. And I never really felt an issue with getting gas except in Patagonia, but it always worked out. Right, so some of the suspension rubber, electrical upgrades I did, the engine and drive, mainly with the carburetor, kind of adjusting the air-fuel mixture. Some of the things I changed with the motorcycle itself, right? And kind of the upgrades. If you're going to go on a trip like this, you kind of want everything to be new, right? New spark plugs, new drivetrain, new tires, new brakes. Just make sure that when you start off, it's just something that you don't have to like deal with on the road until the first maintenance interval. Again, you guys don't all have to do this. You know, this was just me. I felt more comfortable with the places I was going, knowing how to do all this work. But like I said, as long as you know, like an oil change, at least learn how to do an oil change, yeah? If you're gonna do a trip like this. Yeah, and some of the spares that I brought, I think the spares, especially when finding parts was getting more and more difficult, was essential. New sprockets, clutch throttle cables, tubes, obviously, oil drain plugs, spark plugs, these type of things. And then here's my tool set. This is gonna differ for everybody depending on the type of bike and the type of work that you're planning to do, but good tools, any mechanic knows, that really ups your enjoyment of working on the bike, right? When you have tools that you really like to use and can have confidence in. And again, if anyone's interested in this, I can give you the list of these things so you can kind of like iterate and add that, work on your own if you guys are interested. So storage, I decided the Pelican case, which I think was a great idea, and then I used the Tusk panniers. I don't know on a second, well, I like the hard, there's the argument of the hard versus the soft ones because the hard ones allow for more security, but the soft ones are obviously lighter and don't damage as much when they fall. So I think there's an argument to be said for both, honestly. Right. And some other miscellaneous gear. One thing to keep in mind is that, planning is fun. You can do it forever. Gear, being meticulous with like researching the gear is a good way to just kind of get stuck up on like not actually doing the trip. So just kind of make do with what you have, I would say, to start it off. Yes, sir.
Did you find that you overpacked and maybe you got rid of some stuff as the trip went on?
Yeah. So the question was, did I find that I overpacked and got rid of some stuff over the trip? Absolutely. There was also some things that I bought that I figured out I needed later on the road. For the most part, I think I did pretty good, but I had the privilege of having friends come to visit me throughout the trip. So in like Mexico, in Oaxaca, I had a friend come visit me. I had friends come visit me in El Salvador, in Costa Rica, Colombia. So I could buy things from like Amazon here and have them bring it with me or bring things back. Yeah, so I mean, bug spray, honestly, essential. I found this soap that a Colombian mom gave me, which was very, very nice. But I'm the kind of guy that, everyone knows that one guy that gets bitten by a lot of insects. That's me. And so, one time I counted over 100 bug bites on just one leg alone. It was, some nights were just terrible. But, be careful, not only for like the Zika virus and yellow fever and those things, but just the discomfort as well, right? You feel like you have like the plague or smallpox or something. And then, obviously, your own personal gear. Like for me, these are things that are heavy, but I wanted because of my hobbies. The drone, the spear fishing gear, I brought my guitar, 3 different fly fishing rods, my surfboard, obviously, which is the most obnoxious thing, but everyone just kind of bring what you want. Now, I don't know how everyone is into camping, but as motorcycle ADV travelers, you're gonna probably camp at least once, right? So my tip with Latin America, at least, is that you're always trespassing. It's not like here where we have great open plots of government land. There, every parcel of land is owned by somebody, right? So, and most of the time they're chill. Honestly, I've had people come and find me. I did my best stealth camp. I removed all the reflectors. The bike is kind of a neutral color. I'll try to hide it all the time. But sometimes you get found and it's like they see you. I'm like, look, I was tired. It was dark. I'll leave in the morning, and they've always let me go. Or sometimes they even invited me to like camp in a better spot where they give me some food. It always works out. But just in case, keep it tidy in case you have to leave quickly, right? Here's what the inside of my tent looked like. I can get this all packed up in a minute and a half every single time. Just have a routine, but sometimes you do have to leave quickly. I also wanted to mention, this was the funniest, a cat actually snuck into my tent when, so I was sleeping and like around midnight, I felt this movement in my feet, and you obviously freak out because it's like, what the hell got in my tent? Somehow, when I was getting into it, it slipped in there and ended up spending the entire night with me. It's a cute kitty. Yeah. And so here's some of the campsites I found throughout the trip, some of the wild camping ones. Sometimes it was a nice tent, sometimes it was just on the sand or on the ground. Some of the other ones as well. I had a hammock for the first half of the trip. Yes.
Did you have any other animals, like not so nice as cats?
Well, I mean, don't have any other animals animal encounters, right? I mean, the dogs. There were the coatis in Central America. If you're aware of them, they look kind of like raccoons with a big nose and a tail. They're very clever. I actually woke up to one opening. So it was actually at this campsite. I had my backpack here with a bag of nuts unopened in there. I woke up in the middle of the night to the coati meticulously opening my zipper, and then I heard the sound of the crunches of it eating the nuts. So it's not even like a rat. I mean, I had rats and mice obviously as well that would just rip holes, but this one actually opened the zipper and then just like snuck out the pack. It was very sneaky. I actually just let it have it because I was like, wow, I was impressed that I was actually grateful that it didn't rip open my bag. But yeah, and a couple other, cows, horses. I'm trying to think. Nothing like a jaguar or.
Snakes, spiders.
I mean, snakes and spiders, yeah, for sure. Scorpions, these type of things. But not that common and nothing too dangerous. Yeah, some other campsites, so you kind of get an idea of the range. And sometimes urban camping, right? Sometimes it's not so nice. Sometimes you get lucky. This is, for example, where I stayed in Guadalajara in my friend's Ferreteria, which is a hardware store. Here's one of the other campsites, which was in an open excavation site that I had to leave right in the morning as the hauling trucks were coming in. Yes, Nick.
Just to the shop's going to close at 4.
Okay.
Like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Great, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. And then some of the not so pretty sites. Grateful that I got to stay with them, but everyone knows the tolerance for where they want to stay, like what condition of life they want to have. So for me, it's pretty low, but I would obviously have preferred nicer spots. But sometimes it's just like this. So what I learned, right? A lot of helmet time. All riders know you just end up thinking things when you're riding because you can't have your phone. You're just forced kind of with your own thoughts. And what I think I really got out of this trip is that people remember more than anything how you make them feel. You can rationalize a lot of things, but really it's just this intangible feeling that kind of governs a lot of humanity. So act more from the heart. I really enjoyed the solo travel because I like just kind of getting lost in my own world, not having to deal with anybody for hours to days. And so I thought, the sojourn to solitude, excellent laboratory to see how your habits and manners are conditioned by other people. So, suck it up, but also be kind to yourself, right? Motor traveling, self-pity gets you nowhere. You can think about it, but you have to get into problem-solving mode, right? Especially if something's wrong with the bike or in your grave situation, no one's gonna help you out until you help you out yourself. But also keep bad things to yourself. No one likes to hear bad things. Think about the quality of your thoughts and how they allow that to be reflected onto the actions you have. But at the same time, be more of a friend to yourself. Don't be too critical. Kind of act the way that you would treat one of your close friends. Be kind, be more soft with the way that you treat yourself. Because everyone here you're a good guy at the end of the day, or gal. And with that, any questions? Yes, sir.
If there is one thing you can change about this trip, what would that be?
If there was something I could change about this trip, what would that be? In terms of I wouldn't have picked a different bike. Definitely, I would have considered. I don't know if I would have removed the. I don't know. I don't think I have any regrets. But it would probably have to do something with the surfing if I had to do. Honestly, the surfboard, especially down because I got to southern Chile and I didn't surf until I got back to Brazil. So I took it through all of Patagonia, just letting the wind bully me without ever surfing the entire time. Something like that, yeah. Yeah. And yes, sir.
Quick, did you use a Garmin inReach or anything like that?
Yeah. So did I use a Garmin inReach GPS unit? Yes, I did. And it was very helpful, and I liked it because then my friends and family could see where I was at any time.
Wait, what did you use for navigation?
I used Google Maps most of the time. Downloaded Google Maps. I also had Maps.me, Gaia MS, iOverlander, just kind of be redundant. So, because a lot of times you don't have connection, so download the offline maps on a couple of different devices.
Somebody else. So on border crossings, so did you find, was it better to go, if you had a choice between a larger crossing or smaller crossing, would you prefer? In Guatemala, I took a small crossing, and everybody told me it was a nightmare going through the crossing. It took me 5 minutes to get to Guatemala and back. I mean, smaller ones are easier.
Agreed. So the question was smaller or bigger, more commercial crossings. I also found that the smaller crossings were almost always much easier, much smoother, more friendlier, faster. So I would always recommend to go through a smaller crossing if you can. Especially, as us as foreigners kind of traveling through it, they're very interested in it. Large crossing, they see you, they don't care about you. You're just another number that they have to deal with. But the smaller ones are a lot more interested, and usually they'll help you out. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Are you going to put your presentation online? You're going to make that available?
I can. The question was if I'm going to put my presentation online. I can do that, yeah. Or send it to you if you send me an email. I wouldn't mind.
I think you should, just so people can see it. You went to the trouble of doing it.
Yeah, well, I think this type of presentation I'm just going to end up doing for the rest of my life, honestly. So something that I'll continue to iterate on. And I'm grateful to you guys for your time because this is the first time that I've given it. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's things to improve, but it's nice, with every time I present it, I think it'll just become more and more polished. But I'd like to share the story.
We have a question from online. What was the sketchiest experience?
The question online, the sketchiest experience. That's tough. There's quite a bit. I would say some of the sketchier ones were definitely when you get into some of like the poor border towns and you stop for gas. There are certain spots I'm thinking of, and specifically in like Honduras, Nicaragua, and Ecuador, where I would stop for gas and immediately just surrounded by 3 or 4 dudes trying to block me off, asking me where I'm going, where I'm from, what I have, how much is this worth, where am I going to camp out that night, really trying to just chase me, just touching things on the bike, and just a situation where you're like, I need to get out of here right now. So I would just put my helmet back on and just ride out. But yeah, obviously like bad things have happened, but I also, at the end of the day, I'm here in one piece, nothing that bad happened. So yeah, yes.
How did you manage getting close to people when you traveled, knowing that you would soon leave?
You mean as like a friendship or?
In any way?
No. So the question was, how did I get close to people when I knew that it was going to be a transient encounter? I don't know. I mean, I think with a lot of, think about like the closest friendship in your life. Sure, there's a lot of shared time is a big thing, but also just the quality of the time you share and sort of the shared reality of the world that you guys have. I found that a lot of the strong friendships I formed wasn't necessarily just a function of time, that every encounter, you get something out of, everyone has something new to teach you. So I didn't really think of it as like, oh, it's going to be a bummer that I have to leave at some point. It's just, I'll see you in another part of the world, or if it's meant to be, then we can continue. There are people I still communicate to this day that live on the other side of the world, but I would consider them one of the closest people in my life. So I didn't really think of it like that. Yes, Todd.
So before you set out, what was your estimated budget for a month, and what did your average monthly budget end up being?
So the question was about budget, and so my budget, I didn't know because I set out for 6 to 8 months. I averaged about 15 to 20,000 per year traveling for everything, which is on the lower end, definitely. I went to a cheap part of the world. I wild camped a lot for free. I ate a lot of peanut butter jelly sandwiches. But like I said, honestly, okay, this actually goes back to your question. If I could have done something differently, I would have saved up more money for sure, because that just opens up more options. You can do more things. one of the things that I was like the most punishing part for me was going up through Brazil, and it rained for 2 weeks straight, constantly, like strong rain, like rain that like just these heavy pellets. Everything was wet. It actually filled up all my panniers with water as well. Eventually they just gave out, and so everything, like all my stuff was wet, my tools, my clothes, my sleeping gear, and I didn't feel comfortable spending the 10, 20 bucks to get some shelter, so I ended up sleeping outside my tent wet, and it just really was, it was bad for morale, honestly. It was a tough time. Yeah.
I think we're gonna call it a day just to respect Gene's time, who's going back to a wedding as well. Yeah, and the generous time of the shop. Rajan, who owns and runs the shop, if you ever have any needs, it's nice to know an honest and knowledgeable and organized mechanic. He also stores motorcycles here, so if you have extra bikes, which I think many of us do, it's nice to have somebody take care of them and turn them on and make sure they're running. So, Gene, thank you so much. It's a blessing to have you back on home. And thank you, Dražen, for the space as well. Yeah. Thank you, Dražen. He's got some Canadians coming down with the KLRs that needed some service, kind of emergency service, so he's busy with that. What we're going to do now, what I'm going to do, is first thank Gene. This is a little gift for me. The Pegasus planner has got your name on it, the Korean Kowboy. Yeah, so made in Oceanside by a very talented guy, hand stitched, just kangaroo leather, amazing stuff. I mean, it's going to last your lifetime. So, and the idea behind it is to put these ideas and goals on paper, because then they become part of the real world, and therefore much more real, more achievable. And when you have a plan and a goal on how to get there, you're closer to it. So we just launched yesterday a tour of Southwest, 7 days, starting in Las Vegas, very flexible, small group, 6 max. This is, last year we launched Eastern Sierra and ran that, it was amazing. And I'm going to Europe in a month to film the Balkan tour, so I'm going to be launching next year. It's going to be amazing. I think that's the hidden part of the world still has not been discovered. So these amazing roads that nobody uses anymore. So thank you for coming. I'm going to ask you to please help me with the chairs so that we can clear out and not have him stay any past his due time. And we can just take the two of you can take the tables with the food, and we'll just continue in the parking lot. Whoever wants to stay, finish the food. For your chairs, just fold them up, and that's it. And we'll do everything together. Thank you, Gene. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
And thanks to the people online as well. So I'll actually take your give me the presentation of the stuff share. Whatever you're ready to do. Thank you.